Hello, this is Shannon with Waffle Flower Crafts, and this video is the first in our series which focuses on the color wheel and color theory. In today's video, we are going to study tints, tones, and shades by creating color wheels with a variety of different color media. This is the Color Wheels combo set. Today I'll use these two stamps from the Color Wheels stamp set, as well as the large circle die from the Color Wheels matching die set. I went ahead and mounted my stamps in my MISTI, and now I'm going to ink them up with a waterproof ink. This is VersaFine Onyx Black, and I'll stamp on some watercolor paper. This is because I'm going to use watercolors for my first wheel. Now that our color wheel is stamped, let's take a closer look. The color wheel is divided into 12 sections for 12 different hues: red, red-orange, orange, yellow-orange, yellow, yellow-green, green, blue-green, blue, blue-violet, violet, and red-violet. I also stamped out this smaller circle, which will later help us identify split complementary, triad, and tetrad color schemes. Now let's add color to our wheel. For the first color wheel, I'll be using Tombow watercolors. I have a 36 color set, and this set contains all the 12 hues I need to complete my wheel. However, because this set has several different paints that fall under the same hue, like several reds, I decided to reference a manufacturer's color wheel to help me choose my paints. This was not necessary, I just wanted to make sure I was on the right page. If you think you might like a manufacturer's color wheel to help you pick the right colors from your coloring medium, you could also Google search color wheel and use one of the photos as a reference instead of purchasing one. This wheel I'm using, however, is available on Amazon. With my paints picked out, I can now paint. I've decided to create a graded color wheel, and we'll start by painting the hue on the outer section and then increasingly lighten the color to create tints as I work my way towards the center. Tints are created when you add white to any hue on the color wheel. This will lighten and desaturate the hue, making it less intense. Because of the translucent quality of watercolors, we will use water to lighten the hue. The water dilutes the paint, allowing more of the white of the paper to shine through it. So before I start painting a new section of the hue, I add a little more water to the paint on my palette, which makes each section of that hue a little lighter than the one preceding it. And a little water goes a long way, so when I add water, I just barely touch the tip of my brush to the surface of my water to just pick up the tiniest amount of water at a time. And because these sections are small, I'll often just dip my brush in the water, then move my brush over a dry, clean spot on my palette to mix the water and the paint that's left in my brush together, and then I'll paint the next section. And I'll stop painting here at the fourth ring because the last two rings will be covered by that second circle we stamped. I'll now repeat this process for all the remaining hues on my color wheel. And once I complete this red-violet section, I'm all done with this color wheel. I'll hold it to the camera so you can get a good look. This color wheel will really show us all the tints that we can get with these 12 hues. I decided to create a second color wheel with my Tombow watercolors. But this time I decided, in addition to the tints, I would add tones and shades. I've already painted my red and red-orange hues. Now I'm going to move on to orange. I'll flip my palette around so I have a clean area, and I'll start by painting the orange hue. After I paint the orange hue, then I'll lighten my paint a little bit and then paint the tint. And once I finish the tint, I'll move on to the shade and tone. Shades are created when black is added to a hue. So to create shades, I'll just add a small amount of black paint to the hue. However, tones are created when gray is added to a hue. Gray, of course, is a mixture of black and white, and with watercolors, we add water to lighten instead of white paint. So to create my tones, I'll create my shades first, then add a small amount of water to the shade, and this will become the tone. Let's review now with this yellow-orange section. I've already painted the hue, now I'm lightening the paint with a small amount of water and creating the tint. Then I'll grab a little bit of black and add it to the paint to darken, and this will be the shade, and I'll paint this last section here. Once I complete painting this section, I'll grab a little bit of water with my brush, wiggle it over my palette to mix the paint and water together, and this will become my tone now. I'll now repeat this process for all the other hues on this color wheel. And here's my completed color wheel with my tints, tones, and shades. I'm now going to move on to my third color wheel, which I'm going to create with Distress inks. Once again, I use the manufacturer's color wheel to help me pick my colors, and I'm going to start by just smushing a Distress ink down onto my palette. Then I'll grab my spray bottle, spray a little bit of water down, then I'll grab my brush and I will use my brush to pull small amounts of water to add to the ink to get it a little bit more liquidy, a little bit more paintable, and I'll start painting this first section of my color wheel. Just like before, I'm going to create a graded color wheel, so I'm going to start with the hue, and then after I paint the hue, I'll lighten with a little bit of water to create a tint, and I will continue to create tints all the way down to the fourth section of this red hue. And once again, I'll repeat this process for all the remaining colors. I wanted to make a color wheel with Distress inks because I use them for lots of different techniques in my card making, and I think this color wheel will make it a lot easier to come up with new color schemes. I went ahead and die cut the 3 color wheels out with the matching die. I also went ahead and cut out each one of these top circles with scissors, and now I'm going to take an 1/8 of an inch hole punch and just punch out the center of each one of these top circles. After I punch those out, then I'll take a die pick and poke through the center of each one of the color wheels. Then I'll just assemble my color wheel by grabbing the top circle, placing it on top of the color wheel, and then poking a brad through and then fanning out the back, and that will complete my color wheels. And so to not forget what I used, I'm going to grab a permanent marker and on the back of my color wheels, over each section, write the name of the paint or ink I used, as well as indicate if it is red, red-orange, orange, yellow, whatever hue it is supposed to be. And you can see on the back of my Gonzai Tombow ones, I wrote Gonzai Tombow as well as tints, and on this second one I wrote tints, tones, and shades, just so I remember what I did on each color wheel. I'd also like to share 2 other color wheels I made with my Gonzai Tombow. One is shades and one is tones. These are further studies with shades and tones, the same 12 hues. And what I did was I mixed up my shade with a little bit of black, and then again, like we did with together, I added a little bit of water to that shade and then painted the tone on my tone color wheel. Then I went back to my shade color wheel, painted the next section with a little bit more black added to my paint, and then with a little bit of water painted the next section of tone, and I did that till I completed each one of these color wheels. I have 2 more color wheels I'd like to show you. This one is made with Copics, and I have the colors I used written on the outside here. I don't have lots of Copics, but I was still able to create a pretty good color wheel indicating lots of tints. Each one of these hues needs 4 markers, so you do need a lot of markers to create a Copic color wheel. This one is created with Tombow dual brush pens. Just 12 markers were used for this, and just like we did with our Distress inks, I used water to create the tints. And this is where we will stop today. In our next video, these color wheels will be put to good use by helping us learn more about color relationships and how these relationships can help us in our card making, so stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you want any more info on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.